Hi, this is Joby Provido, and you're listening to Contemplating the Rosary, where we talk about how to pray the Holy Rosary even better. In 104 episodes, over 4 seasons, we will explore a method of how to say the Rosary the way Pope St. John Paul II, Pope Paul VI, and other Rosary advocates recommend, and that's by contemplating the mysteries while we say the Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory Be. This podcast is based on the book Beyond the Veil, Contemplating the Mysteries of the Holy Rosary, available at Lazada in the Philippines and in print or Kindle on Amazon, wherever you are. Visit kindlingspress.com for more information and where you can read and download the episode guide. This is episode 40 of the series, the 12th episode of season 2. It's nice to have you back here listening in on how we can pray the Rosary the contemplative way. Today we'll explore the 5th luminous mystery, the institution of the Eucharist during the Last Supper. In this episode, we'll explore 3 themes: the new Passover, the real body and blood of the new covenant, and the ordination of the apostles into the priesthood. Just to give us a little background of the mystery, our Lord and His apostles went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. God had asked His people to remember this great night when He took the firstborn of each house in Egypt, except the house that killed a lamb, smeared its blood on the doorposts and lintel, and ate the lamb. In that first Passover, a lamb was killed and eaten so the firstborn may live. As we said in the first few episodes of this podcast, the way the Jews remember is not a simple recalling. Those who participate in the Passover meals put themselves in the place of their ancestors as if they were in the event itself. This type of remembering is called a zakar, and this is what the apostles were doing, or so they thought. This is because our Lord would perfect the old Passover and replace it with His own new Passover, wherein He would be the lamb that would be slain and eaten so that others may live. So let's imagine the scene. Our Lord is holding the bread, He says the blessing prayer, and then breaks it. And then He tells them, "Take and eat, this is my body." He then distributes the bread and they eat it. During the scene, I personally think of the relief going through the minds of the apostles. They must have remembered the teaching of our Lord when He said they had to eat His body. This was an appalling thought, bordering on cannibalism, and which is why a large part of His disciples left Him. But here, in the Last Supper, our Lord finishes His teaching on this matter. They will eat His flesh, but in the form of bread. Sometimes I try to imagine the relieved looks on the faces of the apostles, realizing they didn't have to eat His flesh as flesh. Later on, He holds up the cup of wine, says the prayer of thanksgiving, and tells them, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is the new covenant in my blood." The cup is passed from one apostle to the other, taking a sip and then passing it to the next. Just as the Passover lamb's blood is separated from its body, so does our Lord show that His body and blood are separated. Sometimes the nuances of language can evoke emotion, and I always like this particular phrase. I quote, "Our Lord is emptied of His blood." End quote. I always choke at the message that our Lord kept nothing back in an effort to save us. Not one drop of blood was left in His body. If we look around the room, at that night, during the Last Supper, we are sure to see some of the apostles looking at one another, still trying to understand this bizarre change in the Passover ritual. It is God who dictated how this Passover is to be celebrated. So it would have been preposterous if Jesus made changes to it if He were not the God who prescribed the ritual in the first place. And because of this, first-century Jews would have understood the significance of covenant talk. Every time a covenant was made, an animal victim was hacked into 2 as a symbol of what would happen to the one who would break the covenant vows. It's like saying, "May it happen to me what happened to this animal if I break my vows." But ever since God made His covenant with Abraham, humankind kept breaking the covenant, and as a result, the covenant curses would befall the Israelites. For example, Israelite was split into 2, a northern kingdom and a southern one with Judea. So they were like the covenant animal that was hacked into 2 because they broke the covenant vows. But God is ever faithful to His covenant, and He continues to keep renewing the covenant throughout history with Moses, with David, but only to be broken again and again. So here, in the Last Supper, our Lord represents all of humankind entering into a new covenant, with Him as the head of the church, and we as His mystical body in union with Him. This covenant won't be broken. God the lover and His bride, the church, His beloved, will forever be one flesh as bridegroom and bride. After our Lord tells them to drink His blood, He also says, "Do this in remembrance of me." Again, first century Jews, like the apostles, would have understood that Jesus is commanding them to do this ritual as a new Passover, where the people come together and do this special remembering, putting themselves in the place of the event. And this is why we say that in each Mass, when we do this remembrance, we put ourselves in Calvary, where the blood of our Lord is emptied from His body. This command to do this in memory of me is the holy orders our Lord makes. And in that short and swift statement, He ordains the apostles as the ministers of this ritual. This command or mandate is why we call Holy Thursday Maundy Thursday, because Maundy comes from the Latin word mandatus or mandate. I think that's nice, and I think we covered a lot in a short time, but let's pause here for now and pick this up in the next season. Don't forget to like this episode, click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon so you'll be notified when the next episode drops. As always, this podcast is brought to you by thecatholictalks.com and kindlingspress.com, where you can read more articles on the Catholic faith and find more books on Catholicism. This has been Joby Provido. I'll say goodbye for now, and please join me again next time when we can learn to pray the Rosary better. Bye-bye.